morning, good afternoon, good evening. A few days ago, Zimbabwe celebrated its 45th Day of Independence. At the age of 45, I think it is a ripe old age for us to seriously review why Zimbabwe is a failed state, whether we have learned lessons from the past, or are we doomed to remain a failed state, blundering from pillar to post for generations to come. Thank you very much, Benjamin. Yes, you observed 45 years of independence. What do you think?
Good day to you and good day to our viewers. Thank you for joining us. You know, like how Honorable BT put it across, he says Zimbabwe is a crime scene. And it's a 45-year-old crime scene and ongoing. And there is no sign, or there is no evidence of this rot, being stopped at any time soon. In fact, the sad thing is that you're finding out that it is the citizens of Zimbabwe that are actually clueless to what needs to be done. But yet, the alternative has been presented over and over again. I believe for the past 25 years, we have been told what needs to be done to fix the problem that we are facing. But we still decide to do what we feel is right for us. And this is what has caused this mess to continue on and on.
Well, let's just play a video clip, which I think in many ways summarizes Zimbabwe economic and political nightmare.
ngitsho ukubana lezi yizo izithembiso zenkayi. In 1993 I was at secondary school ngingu-form 1 phambili kwambalisi wami secondary. Bathi bona we are building the 158-kilometer Nkai road from Bulawayo. We expect to finish by 1999. Go 1995 elections, we are serious. We will finish Nkai Bulawayo road by 1999. On 1996, about the presidential election, we are serious. We are going to finish in Nkai Bulawayo road by 1999. For 2000, but due to Cyclone Elena, we are unable to finish in Nkai Bulawayo road by 1999. Then came 2005. Due to sanctions, we are unable to finish the Nkai Bulawayo road. Come 2008, but we have resumed work of the 158-kilometer Nkai Bulawayo road. Yes, came 2013. We have actually resumed work on the 158-kilometer Nkai Bulawayo road. We are serious. 2018, we have just resumed work on the 158-kilometer Nkai Bulawayo road. We love you, Nkai. Then came 2021. We have resumed the serious work on the 158-kilometer Nkai Bulawayo road. We are the Second Republic. Come 2023, due to sanctions, we are unable to finish the Nkai Bulawayo road. Yes, come 2025, let me revisit the Oxford Dictionary of Contemporary English and say, this is just nothing.
Well, this is just nothing. But for a nation to keep repeating the same mistake over and over again is unforgivable. 45 years of repeating the same mistake is, I'm speechless. The one thing we have repeated throughout the 45 years is the failure to hold free, fair, and credible elections. I believe that is the launching pad. We should have realized by now that nothing of substance can ever be accomplished until we hold free, fair, and credible elections. And yet, 45 years after independence, we are still failing to hold free, fair, and credible elections. Question of, will we ever hold free, fair, and credible elections? Will we ever understand what constitutes free, fair, and credible elections and implement it? And this is not for outsiders. This is for our own benefit. If we fail to see it, I really don't see how we can, in all honesty, expect could, in the next few years, particularly come 2028, we'll have finally learned what constitutes free, fair, and credible elections, and make sure that those elections are free, fair, are indeed free, fair, and credible. I don't see it happening.
You're very right to say, as long as you do not have, free, fair, and credible elections, you will never get accountability of that government that is taken, office. That is just a fact, and I agree with you there. But the worst thing is we have now resorted to saying reforms do not matter for now. Let us get rid of the current government through and rigged elections, win those rigged elections, and then after we will look into reforms. And there are many excuses to say because the elephant is in the room, we cannot do anything. That is a lie. And we are lying to ourselves to give ourselves, the benefit of doubt to say, we can go and participate in rigged elections, knowing fully well this is the cause, this is the root cause, like you said, you know. And then the question that you asked to say, will we ever get ourselves out of this mess? You know, it's it's sad to say, but as long as we have this mindset that we will participate in rigged elections just because the next person is doing it, or there's going to be many oppositions created by Zanu PF that will ensure that they get legitimacy. As long as we have those excuses and we believe those excuses, you know it'll be business as usual. Zanu PF does not need fake oppositions. Zanu PF needs us to go and participate and show the world that the people of Zimbabwe have spoken. Take away that element of the people of Zimbabwe have spoken. That means you and I not participating in rigged elections, doing something about it. A lot of people say if you don't participate, so and so is going to do that. No, if you don't participate, then you do something about it. So we have a reason and we have an alternative. But unfortunately, the alternative that is being presented is not what we want. We want to participate. Somebody will give you, a lot of people give you an excuse to say, you know, participating in an election is a right. But what is the purpose of participating in an election that is just going to be rigged anyway? You know, so you're lying to yourself and believing that you had a say. And we know the people of Zimbabwe since 1980 have never had a say in who governs the country, period.
Well, to come back to that theme, actually, we have on this platform again and again referred to what David Coulthard admitted in his book, that the 2013 elections were flawed, so illegal, that the only logical step was to withdraw. And he went on to explain why he and his fellow opposition members would not withdraw. Greed. This is why at the beginning of this discussion, we started with a question of why is it 45 years after independence, millions of ordinary Zimbabweans out there still do not understand what constitutes free, fair, and credible elections? Why Zimbabwe is a failed state? What needs to be done to get us out of this mess? 45 years after independence. And one of those issues that they fail to understand is what constitutes free, fair, and credible elections. I have in the picture there a photograph that was taken recently in Gokwe during the independence celebration. In the picture is some of the opposition leaders. There is Linda Masarira and Lovemore Madhuku. And it was interesting to note the comments that emanated from some of the people who were commenting on the photographs. The very fact that these two opposition leaders participated, you could tell it had galvanized some of the ordinary Zimbabweans to say, come 2028, they will participate in the flawed elections to stop the likes of Lovemore Madhuku getting into power. They have forgotten what the purpose of an election is. The purpose of an election is to elect a competent government. If the process itself is so flawed, so illegal, that the logical step to do is to withdraw, why would you participate just because you cannot bear the thought of a non-entity opposition leader being elected? They cannot get their minds around the reality that if the main opposition, for instance, in this case, CCC, had not participated in 2023, the other small parties had participated, they would have not got legitimacy. This issue was explained at the time several times, but clearly it never sank in. So the reality is, come 2028, many people would participate just to make sure that the likes of Madhuku and Linda Masarira do not get into power. They will shoot themselves in the foot just to get at the opposition, not knowing that Zanu PF does not really care which opposition gets the few gravitran seats that are being used as bait, as long as they entice the public to participate in numbers. And Mnangagwa himself has been rewarding those opposition leaders. In 2000, after the 2018 election, he created POLAD, which was meant purely to reward those opposition leaders that had failed to win any of the gravitran seats being used as bait, to entice them, to encourage them to participate in future. It would not be beyond Mnangagwa to find that the likes of Madhuku and Linda had some indirect or direct assistance from the Zanu PF party to get them to Gokwe. And we are seeing a picture of them here in the VIP lounge, whereas the ordinary person were left to find their way in the muddy fields that had been created as part of the venue on this occasion. The opposition leaders have not paid the price. The price is the ordinary people who have paid the price. Why it has become incomprehensible for them to understand that participating in the flawed election to give Zanu PF legitimacy just to get at the opposition is exactly what Zanu PF would want them to do. Beggars belief. So the question is going to be asked again. After 45 years, have we learned any important lesson? Are we ever going to get out of this hellhole that we have landed ourselves?
You know, a good question now would be to ask ourselves, what is it that we benefit or do we gain from participating in rigged elections? Zanu PF stands to gain the presidency. They will be, you know, a democratic elected government through these rigged elections. What does the opposition gain? The opposition gain, you know, the few gravy train seats in parliament, in council, and they get given, you know, the participation money, plus also the cherry on top, the POLAD, which includes paid travels, paid expenses, you know, and cars and so forth, right? Then my question now is, the citizens, what do you gain? Nothing. So now you can see that everybody around us has something to gain. And it is us, the citizens, that are left, you know, out in the cold. We are not part and parcel of, you know, the VIP, you know, tent or the VIP area. We are the povo. We sit out in the rain and enjoy the mud, like what is, you know, on the picture, you know, taken by the Standard. So we have the evidence. This is what bothers me the most, Wilbert, is we have the evidence, sufficient evidence, and, you know, beyond reasonable doubt, We now know what is happening, the conspiracy behind participating in rigged elections. But like you said, come 2028, we will not be deterred to keep going on and doing the same thing and perpetuate our own suffering in the end. If that is not madness or foolishness or just sheer stupidity, what name could you give it? Clearly, the joke is on us, and we can stop this. We have been given the tools to stop this. But lo and behold, I really cannot put a finger to where our problem lies, but just foolishness.
Yeah, that is the tragedy. It is unfortunate that now, 45 years after independence, one can honestly say we have not really learned anything at all. It is disappointing to say, but it is the truth. I really don't see any reason to be optimistic that come 2028, the people of Zimbabwe would finally do the right thing. Stop participating in flawed elections that are so flawed, so illegal, that the only logical thing to do is to stop participating. And yet we all know that they will participate. And having participated, they will give Zanu PF legitimacy and thus perpetuate the nation's own suffering. I think after 45 years, if we had any intellect to learn from the past mistakes, we should have learned by now. But I think we cannot deny that we do not have that intellect. It will be a day's work to persuade Zimbabweans to participate in 2028, flawed as they are, and give the Zanu PF political legitimacy, give the few opposition leaders who win the seats, the gravitrine seats, and for the rest of the country, perpetuate the suffering. Zimbabwe had the potential to become the South Korea of Africa. Instead, we've become the North Korea of Africa. We have become one of the police states in Africa, run by corrupt, incompetent, and utterly useless political leaders, both in the ruling party and in the opposition. It is tragic to observe, but it is equally true. Ben, do you want to give your closing remarks?
In closing, I would repeat myself and I would say, ZANU PF stands to gain the presidency in rigged elections. The opposition stands to get, a few gravy train seats, bribe money, the 40,000 that is given to MPs, you know, the free stands and POLAD and so forth. My question is, what do you and I stand to get from this transaction or from this deal? Absolutely nothing. Why do we participate? Because we are the main ingredient that is needed for there to be free, fair, and credible elections, or for this whole democracy name to be given to this, you know, to any election. The people are the ones that give the stamp, you know, of approval for an election. So if we are the main ingredient and we stand to get nothing from the transaction, why do we do it? This is the question that I will leave with everybody. What do we stand to gain from this deal of participating in rigged elections? What is our gain thus far? And why are we going to continue doing it come 2028? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben. And for those of you who are able to join us tonight, thank you very much for joining us. But my parting remark would be, I think we will not be looking at a Zimbabwe getting out of this political and economic mess in the next few years. Because if we have failed to learn the lesson in the last 45 years, I don't think there is any reason to believe that we'll do so in the next 10, 20 years. None. More so come 2028. My prediction is Zimbabweans will be conned to participate in those flawed elections, give Zanu PF legitimacy, give the few opposition leaders seats on the gravy train, and for the majority, perpetuate the chaos that we see in our country today. One of the remarks that we showed a picture there of Standard talking about 10 million US dollars was spent on this party alone, this celebration. But as you can see from the pictures we've been flipping through, there is really nothing to suggest where the 10 million US dollars was spent on. Such is the story of Zimbabwe. The criminal waste of the country's human and material resources. And we, the people, are not yet ready to do anything to put an end to it. That is the tragedy of the last 45 years. And unless something significantly changes, I can see this course of action, this tragedy, this tragic story continuing for the next 10, 20 years. That is really sad, particularly for a country that had so much potential. Very, very sad indeed. Thank you and good night.